back. You're watching Startup Central with me, Nayantara, the only show of its kind on Indian television dedicated to startups, entrepreneurs, technology, innovation, disruption, anything that has to do with the new economy. Stay in touch with us. Our email address right on top. It is suc@etnow.tv. Today I'm coming to you from Mumbai, but my home city, New Delhi, recently played host to a mega event called the TiE Delhi NCR Global Summit. Now, the TiE Delhi NCR chapter is, of course, headed by the former Google India head, now with Sequoia, Rajan Anandan. And trust me, TiE Delhi NCR pulled out the big guns. I've already played you an interview with the unicorn Dhruva. There was a large representation from venture capitalists as well, including Asha, Jadeja, Motwani. She lives in the Silicon Valley, very well known as a venture capitalist. I had a fireside chat with her, where her advice to entrepreneurs is also think big. Don't only chase venture capitalists, consider impact funding too. Here's an edited excerpt.
China has been struggling, and Beijing and Shanghai have been struggling with this level of pollution for a long time. Those, because these are climate change related, there is good news and bad news. The bad news is, first, that it's difficult to come up with, because these are mega problems, right? These are intercity programs. These are intercity problems. So you have pollution, when you say Delhi pollution, it is sitting on 2-3 states. The solution to that is not that easy. The good news, though, is that I had mentioned on my Twitter, on my tweet today, is that this year I'm discovering that private wealth is $70 trillion being managed in the West. 70 trillion of private wealth, people like you and me who are managing, giving JP Morgan and Merrill Lynch and all, our funds to manage it. 70 trillion. So I think by some law or some UN resolution that's been going on, 1.23 trillion is coming free. And I think India is absolutely in the front line. We should not, this was something that went off like a switch in my mind, that Indian startups, if they are anchored around the 17 United Nations SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, there are 17 of them. If your startup falls in any of those buckets, you have an opportunity to avail of those funds, and you should be applying for those. I think most of it are going to be available in the US. Not so much Europe, but in the US. So keep an eye out on that. In fact, look at something called SOCAP 19, and just look at what happened in that conference. You'll run into all these various new legislation that are coming up. And so Nayantara, I don't know if that answers your question, but there is huge amounts of funding that's coming free for climate change around UN SDGs.
This is the future impact funding. I know I'm talking to one of the best venture capitalists that we have on the planet, but is that the future?
That is the future. Because what's happening is that, increasingly, in fact, this conversation about the 70 trillion was that how is it that it's just being managed by white men? Not even white women. So this question, which has been raging around in the in the US circles, is that what would that financing industry look like if it had few white women also, if it had few brown people also, and it had few black people? What would that funding scenario look like? Would it mean that there'll be more diversification even on funding, right? Because there's metaphorically speaking, there's only so much that we can keep funding sugar water like Coca-Cola. It's bad for you, it's killing you, versus something that's going to be doing greening of the planet. And India is at the forefront. So those of you who are doing startups, actually follow me on Twitter also, but those of you who are doing startups, please look at impact funding funds. Look at impact funds for funding. Venture capital from India, venture capital is not easy. It takes, and just so you know, I have got about 250 Rajiv Circle fellows now. This fellowship is where I take startups like yours, I simply schlep them on a plane, and I take them to the Bay Area, to Silicon Valley where I live, and I plunge them into the valley for anywhere from 6 weeks to about 3 months. I send them back to India. After that, none of these startups need me to help them. They're so inventive, they're so enterprising and resourceful that they come to the US to create their own network, and they are on a roll. So I strongly recommend that those of you who can make it, you must start getting, more and more familiar with the impact fund, that milieu rather than just venture capital, because there's huge funding coming available, in fact, as we speak right now. So you'll have people like Rockefeller Foundation, USAID, United Nations, funds and things like that. Lots and lots of them are coming up with funds around climate change. So there's good news.
And, I'm going to play devil's advocate here. Is impact funding also less intrusive, gives you more autonomy?
Actually, well, to be honest, the venture capital world is much more, I would say, first of all, venture capital world works in a time frame of 10 years. So you have, so if I fund a company, I want to see my money back in 20x in 10 years. Impact funds typically have a timeline of about 25 years. So there are 2-3 reasons this is happening. One is that there isn't enough of sort of venture expertise in the impact world. So people have been, over the last, I would say, 20 years, I think the impact, sort of the ecosystem in the West, which has spent trillions already, has not seen the pedal move. They have not seen a dent in climate change. And so those guys are beginning to get very nervous, and they are saying, look, what are we doing wrong here? And they are saying we should work like venture capitalists. So before they wake up, I think those who don't want to have somebody breathing down your neck all the time, yes, impact funding is easier. There's no doubt about it. I think 2 meetings and 1, and I think the Indian startups, they are absolutely the low-hanging fruit for the impact guys. So this last month when I went to SOCAP 19 in San Francisco, of the 5,000 people, guess how many were Indian? Any guesses? Like 3. You go to a venture capital world, everybody's there. So this is a new world that we must explore, and this truly is 1.23 trillion that's coming together.
What does it take to impress Asha, Jadeja, Motwani? What do you look for? Do you have a checklist?
I do, actually. I look for startups. So within India, the Bay Area, it's a different story, but within India, I look for startups that are founded by people who are, to begin with, they are bootstrapped, number one. So they have created their own company with their own funding, and they seem to care about their community. They are problem solvers. They care about their community, and they come up with that solution which they're creating themselves. And there are many of these. Being in India is like being a kid in a candy shop. It's just that startups here are incredible, and there is. I must own up that I do just slap them on a plane and take them to the valley, and it's not brain drain. It really is a brain gain. But because these companies just come back to India right away, and they start something here, but then they can also raise funding from there, which is very nice actually, because mentorship is different. And we are a global country now. We have to have, markets in the US now. So that's one thing, yeah. But otherwise, apart from that, just, I would like it if I had another good fellow angel investor. And, right now the angel network in India is so vibrant. Yeah. So it's fantastic. I think a lot of these guys who've been, exiting from things like Flipkart and stuff like that, they are already investing. So I think for me, the low-hanging fruit in Indian startups is to piggyback on somebody who's had an exit. And so those founders are probably the best pipeline for deal flow.
It's always also good to know the likes and the dislikes. So what is it that you see, you'll be like, no, God, never, I'm not going to invest in this startup?
I would say, like a bad startup, right? I would say, look, I think, frankly, for me personally, I don't have expertise in enterprise software as much as I would like, and I don't have expertise in health tech also. So when I see those startups, I normally have somebody else do the due diligence for me and things like that. But I think overall, if the startup has really not built a product and has not put in their own blood, sweat, and tears, then it is something that's lower on my priority list. Yeah.
I wanted to also ask you, the big global story has been the SoftBank debacle, the WeWork IPO, which as just a journalist, I was just like, isn't this investment banking 101? Shouldn't you first be profitable before going for an IPO? And now it's being seen as one of the biggest lessons. Have we seen a reset in funding in the VC world and all of that after this entire issue and saga?
With WeWork?
WeWork, as well as what's happening with SoftBank, right?
Yeah. So SoftBank is, look, SoftBank is, I mean, frankly, those of us who are Valley insiders, we don't see them as Valley insiders. You know, we see them as, you know, good people from outside coming into the Valley, and a lot of them seem to get attracted to fluff. So there is, so there is a little bit. WeWork, I mean, I don't think anybody in the Valley is, you know, would touch something like WeWork in that sense. But, you know, that said, there is, you know, sometimes there is this euphoria that people generate around, you know, using marketing and other tools. But WeWork to me has, you know, me and my venture friends in the Bay Area has always looked like, you know, this, where is this baby going to go? And SoftBank has a lot of money that it has been trying to deploy on something that they feel is going to be the next generation, a kind of a community play. So I think they are seeing it more as a community play, but then that is not a venture model then. That's not, you know, it's much more of a private equity model, and frankly, I don't know what SoftBank is doing, but, you know, it's a disaster.